And welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Greyboys podcast. I am your host today, B. Rad Brendan, and at long last, it's my solo podcast. I finally get to take the reins of this bad boy, and hopefully, we'll have some fun today. Super Kami Will and Gene both had at least one of their own podcasts. This one was a little delayed in getting to you all, so hopefully, it's just a lot better than theirs. So today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite intellectual properties that's been around for 60 plus years. Of course, I'm talking about the one, the only, king of the monsters himself, Godzilla. So, as some of you probably know, Godzilla's been around for decades, with the original film, Godzilla, coming out, I believe, 1954. And since then, there have been over 30 Godzilla films, which have been made by Toho. At this point in time, two films made by Legendary Studios, with at least one more on the way, hopefully within the next year or so. Three Netflix films that I can think of, which were all pretty bad, don't waste your time. Along with one other film, I want to say it was TriStar that made it. The 1997 or 1998 Godzilla film. And I'll go a little bit into each of those as we move along in this process. But why don't we start at the beginning? For me, I believe the first Godzilla film that I saw was, in fact, the Americans' first adaptation at the King of Monsters. That was a Matthew Broderick film. Hank Azaria was in that movie. And funny enough, there were other actors and actresses in that movie, and I don't know their name, so that should kind of tell you the whole story. It was a very weird way of trying to take a classic, movie monster in Godzilla and number one, not only humanize the monster, which I get, we've had Godzilla films do that, but they basically looked at the original Jurassic Park film and said to themselves, that movie worked really well. Why don't we just do the exact same thing? Let's just take one big monster, make that the looming threat, and then decide, you know what? Let's make smaller monsters, and that's the real threat. Just in alignment with, originally we discovered that T-Rex is the scary dinosaur in Jurassic Park, but then you realize the real threat is the raptors. This Godzilla also had probably the worst design out of all the different Godzillas we've seen. There's probably been 20 different costume designs or animated designs of this character. All of them are really cool, except for this one. In alignment with what I said about Jurassic Park, they just made it a big dinosaur. He just looks like he could have been an early design for Jurassic Park that Steven Spielberg looked and said, nah, that's pretty ugly. Let's not go that way. Again, just adding fuel to the fire. For those of you listening, if you like the 1997 or 1998 film, again, more proof. I don't even know what year it is. It's that irrelevant. If you like that movie, just turn off the video. Go fuck yourself. I don't have fucking time for you. Luckily enough, though, after seeing that nonsense of a film, I wound up discovering real Godzilla films in third grade. The first of which I saw was King Kong versus Godzilla. Now, some of you will look at footage of that film. You're going to say to yourself, Jesus, that's some really campy footage, some really shitty looking costumes and stuff. And I know, it's okay. I love it anyway. I think it's fantastic. And having grown up seeing the original King Kong when I was a kid, and then the King Kong that came out in the 70s wasn't too bad. It was around this time that Peter Jackson's King Kong came out also. So I was kind of in this monster phase, I guess, and it basically started with those two characters along with other video games that were unrelated to either one but had, giant ape monsters and giant lizard monsters, which was pretty cool. So luckily, I got an early look at the real Godzilla, Toho Godzilla, and that's what sparked my interest. I think the second Godzilla film I saw was maybe a couple years later, Godzilla versus Megaguirus. It might be Megaguirus. And I just thought it was really cool. Out of all the designs that we've had for Godzilla, I would say that specific Godzilla design is my absolute favorite. And unfortunately, it was only featured in two films, which were Godzilla 2000, another great Godzilla film, and Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. They came out a few years apart. They used the same costume. Thought it looked so freaking cool, and they changed it, the following year or 2 years later when they came out with the next film. Other designs that I thought were really good over the years for Godzilla films were the one that we actually did see in King Kong versus Godzilla. I love his creepy little eyes in that. I think they're pretty cool. Obviously, of course, realizing it's just a dude in a costume is hilarious and makes it even better. But my other favorite design would be from one of the most recent films, which was Shin Godzilla, which that is one scary looking creature. It's the first time I really looked at Godzilla and said to myself, holy shit, that's fucking terrifying. Before that, it was always, oh, that looks really cool, or oh my god, look how ridiculous that is. This was the first time that Toho put out a film for Godzilla, shit your pants type look. Legendary's style of Godzilla is also really good. Not one of my favorites, but he does look pretty good. I think they did a better job with the other monsters in that universe than they did with Godzilla, in my opinion. I think what they did with King Ghidorah was amazing. Rodan looked pretty good. Mothra was awesome. Even the Mutos were really cool, along with the 8 to 10 other, monsters that we saw, but we only saw them for a few seconds on screen. But that King Ghidorah, man, that is something else. That is grade A fat material right there. Don't tell me otherwise. For a franchise that's been around for 60 something years, there's obviously going to be issues. And one issue that almost all of these films share in common is the plot, the humans, and the campiness. Especially with the two legendary Godzilla films so far. One of which I actually have on while I'm recording this. I'm watching the King of the Monsters one. And man, look at that Ghidorah. But then right away, my perfect example. They show King Ghidorah on the screen, and he's just absolutely incredible. So sexy. But then we get a camera jump, and we see Ice Cube's son saying something along the lines of, uh-oh, that doesn't look good. Like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not here for you. All these films have this weird belief that we as an audience care about what's going on with the humans. The 2019 film, it revolves heavily on the girl from Stranger Things and her parents. The mother thinks that unleashing the monsters is good for nature. The dad and the military, other people think it's the worst thing to do. So for some reason, they're on opposite ends. And the child is in the middle of this, but she doesn't know how to feel because her younger brother was killed in the 2014 Godzilla film. Like while Godzilla was fighting the Muto, a piece of debris fell on the kid or something. Again, I don't really fucking care. No one fucking cares about these people. The studios think, oh, we'll humanize this story and show that with these monsters creating havoc, there's stakes at hand. I don't fucking care about your stakes. I want to see King Ghidorah beating the shit out of Godzilla, and then Godzilla retaliating by fucking hitting him in the head with his goddamn tail, picking up a piece of a building and shoving it down his stomach. That's what I fucking want. No one cares about this family drama. Again, like right now, the girl's like, oh, I'm going to save the day. I'm going to use the sound waves to distract King Ghidorah so he doesn't kill those innocent people. Who fucking cares? You see a creature like that and you're going to suddenly have a moral conscience? I don't know how you just don't get the fuck out of there. So stupid. God damn it! Along with the human plot, a lot of the Toho films, the overall plot of the films is just so stupid. A lot of them revolve around this plot of this exactly. Movie starts, Godzilla wreaking havoc on whatever town or city in Japan. The government's trying to figure out, what do we do? What do we do? Last time we tried this and it stopped, but he's back. Or, oh, it literally stopped him for a day. He's back again. And they never know what to do. And then a MacGuffin usually pops up. Some type of item that they think will save the day. In the original film, it actually worked. It was an oxygen bomb, which they wound up releasing into the ocean after Godzilla went back in. And this weapon that a doctor was working on literally took all the oxygen out of the water near Godzilla, and he died on the spot. So that was one of the few times it actually worked out well. Otherwise, we get these weird plots with silly devices that'll stop Godzilla, which of course they never do because you can't fuck with a king. Another weird plot hole that a lot of these have is for some reason alien race come to Earth and offer their help to the Japanese government or Japanese people saying, "Oh, we have a monster of our own that's peaceful and will listen to us, and that monster will destroy Godzilla." And keep in mind, when I say an alien race, you would think maybe they look like your typical Martian design or maybe something from Star Wars. You would think something that doesn't look like Japanese people. But I kid you not, these aliens show up and they are just Japanese people. Maybe one movie said, "Oh, we project like this to make you more comfortable." But I think every other time we're just led to believe they're aliens because they show up in a spaceship. But I look at them as just Japanese people cosplaying in some weird Star Trek shit. And very often these aliens show up and they claim to be the heroes that'll destroy Godzilla, but they unleash a worse monster on the Earth. And of course, Godzilla's the one that comes and saves the day. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe he is the good character. Of course he's the good character, you fucking idiot. These films are always campy in a lot of ways, usually with the acting. Of course, some of the older ones are campy just with the costume designs and watching, these people in costumes jumping around, flailing themselves. But I think that's the beauty of it, knowing that there's someone getting paid to be in a costume, trying to do backflips and jump in the air and clap like a child, but you realize it's supposed to be a monster destroying a city in front of your eyes. I think that's great. But back to just the weirdness with the aliens and the campiness. One of the specific Godzilla films, I want to say it was definitely a Mechagodzilla film. I don't know if it was versus Mechagodzilla 1 or 2. There's been a couple of them. But one of them revolved around an alien race coming to Earth saying they could help the Japanese defeat Godzilla. But what they were going to do was go back in time and find Godzilla before he became the giant creature he was. We're shown that he was actually just a big dinosaur that somehow survived, you know, extinction, and he was living on an island by himself out in the Pacific. And this island happened to be a battlefield for the United States and Japan during World War II. And, both sides see this giant dinosaur. The Japanese side is, saying to themselves, "Oh, we better get out of its way. We better leave him be. This is his home." The United States is like, "Nope, fuck that thing. Kill it. That thing's fucking weird." But the weird thing is, these movies often, the Japanese Toho films, will have white male actors in it. And for some reason, they always have them speak English. It would make more sense if they were, an American that, lives in Japan or works in Japan and can speak Japanese. That would add up. But they always just have them speak English and somehow the Japanese people understand him or her. But not only do they speak English, they speak the most broken, slowest English I've ever heard. So you'll have a Japanese character in Japanese saying, "Well, what are we going to do about this?" And then you have the American saying, "Well, why don't we just shoot it down?" Right? I don't get it. But back to that specific Mechagodzilla film, we see that spaceship going back in time and it flies over the island. And there's a U.S., troop on a naval ship looking at his commanding officer saying, "Sir, did you see that? What the hell was that?" And the officer's like, "What are you talking about? It was a spaceship. I'm telling you, it's a spaceship." And the commanding officer's like, "Of course it wasn't. You're losing your mind. You're too stressed. Go down below deck. Just sleep it off." "Oh, yes, sir." But great idea, kid. Why don't you save a story like that about aliens on a secret spaceship? Save a story like that for your son when he grows up, okay, Officer Spielberg? And I just, I cry laughing at that for hours. This Godzilla film tried to be relatable by saying Steven Spielberg's father was a naval officer that saw a spaceship, and that's what sparked the creative genius of his son, Steven Spielberg. Telling these stories of a spaceship had Steven Spielberg go, "Oh, cool, now I'll just make movies about dinosaurs and extraterrestrials and big, ugly, friendly giants, I guess." I don't know. Just fucking stupid. I guess at this point of the podcast, we can wrap it up by talking about the future of this franchise. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have at least one more Godzilla film coming from Legendary Studios that will be King Kong versus Godzilla. There have been some production delays and maybe some screenwriting changes, but hopefully within the next 12 to 15 months, we get that film. That's all I can hope for. I think we really have a chance of getting a great film where we're going to see Godzilla and King Kong kick the shit out of each other, go fucking wild, and then more than likely there's going to be a larger threat that they're actually going to team up against each other. My guess would be that that would be some type of mix between Mechagodzilla and King Ghidorah, because spoiler alert, at the end of the 2019 Godzilla film, Godzilla kills King Ghidorah, but one of the heads of the three-headed body is found by this corrupt organization, and they're going to figure out something to do with it. So my guess is that they're going to make a Mechagodzilla with a King Ghidorah head, which is just fucking orgasmic. Give it to me right now. Who needs Mia Khalifa when you have that? Come on, let's all admit it. Other than that, the legendary MonsterVerse still has some room to grow. We've obviously had one King Kong film. He's going to be featured in this new film, fighting Godzilla, maybe teaming up with him. He may get other films in the future. They may even let him fight Godzilla monsters moving forward. Maybe we'll have a film where somehow King Kong's fighting the legendary Destroyer. Something really cool like that to kind of really bring this universe together. That would be fucking dope. There are so many monsters in the Godzilla MonsterVerse, if you want to call it. Not even including these new monsters that we've seen in these legendary films. I think it would be great if we got some other characters that didn't get a lot of recognition, like Orga, like Destroyer, like even Megagoras would be really cool. But goddamn, if we got something like Gigan or something, that'd be fucking wild. One can only hope and dream. Other than that, Toho has kind of stepped aside. They have this deal with Legendary. While Legendary is doing their thing, Toho's taking a step back. The only reason we got Shin Godzilla was it took place between the release of Godzilla in 2014 and King of the Monsters in 2019. It came out right in the middle of that. So I think Toho's going to let Legendary put out this third film for Godzilla. It might be the last one, or at that point, Toho might see where they stand financially, see if they've warranted more monster films. If not, it's going to go back to Toho. My biggest hope for this franchise is that we get some form of sequel to Shin Godzilla, because that very well may be the best Godzilla film ever made. It was kind of a retelling of the original film, seeing this bizarre creature walking on the streets of Japan. We don't know where it came from. We realize that it's from nuclear testing, which is the whole premise of the original film. It just wreaks havoc. Nothing the government can do stops it. They do finally stop it, but we get this crazy shot at the end of the film. Keep in mind, this specific Godzilla in Shin Godzilla is the most adaptive one we've ever seen, where he changes not only to fit the environment, but fit what's going on around him, aka the military trying to destroy him. He winds up giving himself better armor on his plates, and, eye protective sockets, and fire breath, and laser breath. And at the end of the movie, after he's been defeated and frozen, we actually see that on the tip of his tail, there's humanoid creatures coming out. Now, I don't know if that's just the director's way of kind of creating something visual, something for us to decide for ourselves. What does that mean? In my opinion, it means there's going to be little humans running around, and I want my fucking sequel. But I think at that point, I'm going to wrap it up. It's been an honor. It's been a lot of fun. I think it's safe to say this is the greatest single podcast that's ever been created in the history of mankind. Tune in next time, where I very may well just spend 5 hours talking about an incredible form of art that doesn't get enough respect in today's media. And that art form is the Star Wars prequel memes. I think I can work something beautiful on that. Talk about how it's up there with the Mona Lisa and the Sistine Chapel and Dex and I hate you and young Boba Fett. I think they all just work together. George Lucas said it himself. It's like poetry. It rhymes. So on that note, have a good day. Go fuck yourself. I don't really fucking care. Goodbye.